Alright, sorry about that. Let's go ahead and continue barreling through these here. God, I have so many questions to push through. Real quick. Several games here that people have asked about: Disgaea, Demon's Souls, Time Splitters, Sanitarium, Septerra Core, Dragon's Dogma, Red Faction, Seven Kingdoms, Sonic Chronicles, and Valhalla Knights. All of these are, with one exception, are all basically in the same boat. They look interesting. I have nothing bad to say about them. I wouldn't mind playing them someday. The exception is Septerra Core, which a friend of mine played way back in the day, and he kind of warned me away from it, and I watched him play it a bit, and he didn't like it, and I didn't like what I looked, so that's probably not one I would pick up. One of the questions was for the Star Ocean series, which is a series I have been a fan of for a while. Sort of. I have to add that tangentially, because Star Ocean 1 was a great game. Star Ocean 2 was an amazing game. Star Ocean 3 was not. Star Ocean 3 was not a bad game, but it was not a good game by any stretch. And I didn't care for the latest one, too, whose name I can't even think of. So it's kind of a hit or miss there. I never know how to pronounce this, but mentally I've always pronounced it Yeez. Y''S, Yeez series. That's another series. I do actually like that series. It's not a great, it's not what I would consider the greatest series of all time, but it is a good series, and I'm grateful for the fact that they're re-releasing all those games on Steam or on the PSP, and I will be picking those all up as they come out. Next question, which would be timestamped, because I need to do that, don't I? How would you feel about a Star Wars movie or series created in the CGI style of the Old Republic trailers? Now, that would be insanely and hideously expensive and time-consuming, so it would probably be a movie. It would be cool if they did it. It would have to be set in a different era than the modern one, which is to say, it basically have to be in the Old Republic or some time within the 2,000-year gap they have of time there. It's quite a big gap if you think about it, in order to do it in. But I think that would be cool if they pulled it off. The real catch is who actually does the writing, the directing, that sort of thing, and whether or not that would work out. So, shrug, I suppose. There's another question similar to that later, if I'm not mistaken, but let's move on. Do you think there will ever be another Star Trek TV series? No. If so, what direction do you think the series would go in? I'll mention that in a moment. Would cancellation of Star Trek Enterprise have any bearing on any of the things you could see happening? Let's be honest, Star Trek Enterprise was doing pretty badly, but it was just getting to the point where, where it was finally getting good again, right? And it was finally getting to the point where it was actually worth watching. And then they pulled the plug. And one of the things that was supposed to rescue Star Trek was Star Trek Nemesis, which, whether you think it is a good movie or not, failed miserably financially. And that is what ended Star Trek. That, after the Enterprise problem, destroyed Star Trek and made it so that it would be years before someone finally got the nerve to touch the IP again and actually do Star Trek 2009. So, I don't think that I mean, obviously the cancellation of Enterprise had an impact, just not as much of an impact as everything else did, especially the loss of Nemesis. That was just unpleasant and unfortunate. As far as which direction I would like to see a further Star Trek series go in, actually, I do have, as I think I've mentioned before, a TV series. I had plotted it out with several friends of mine, and by several I mean like two. But it was a TV series idea I had for Star Trek, and it was continuing after Deep Space Nine. It was continuing with the existing canon in the Alpha Quadrant and Beta Quadrants past the point at which we see, which is basically Deep Space Nine, not counting Nemesis, is as far along as that gets. So, because Voyager kept going past that timeline-wise, but that was all in the Delta Quadrant. Anyways, my point being, I don't want to say much for the fear of the fact that I might someday actually get to do that, but let's just say that the primary themes would be unity, differences of opinion and personality and culture, and the ways those can interact, war, and what war can mean. And I don't want to go into that in too much detail, so let's just move on to the next question, which would be down here. Do you think that the Mass Effect 3 Crucible is inspired by Gears of War's ending? No, I don't personally. Not knowing too much, admittedly, about Gears of War 3's ending in relation to that. I mean, I know they had the thing, whose name I can't even think of. But, no, I think, personally, being as unkind as I possibly can, that the Mass Effect 3's Crucible ending was inspired by the Endingtron 5000, which is actually in Deus Ex Revolution, or whatever the new one is called. Haha. Next question. Have you ever played Earthbound? And if so, what do you think of Gigas? I found that question very amusing because I have an Earthbound review up on this site, so apparently he didn't think to glance at that. I guess that doesn't surprise me too much. But yes, I've played Earthbound. It's one of my favorite games of all time, and it is in my art category. As far as what I think of Gigas, I had a very extensive theory about what exactly it was that was destroyed when Mother 3 came out, which is fine. But I thought it was an interesting villain. I thought it was a very effective type of villain. It's the implacable wall type of villain where you never really have to interact with it. You never really have to see it. You just have to see the effects of it. That's all that's relevant, and that's what they did very effectively in Earthbound, to the point where Gigas got ramped up and built up as the villain without you ever having to see him on screen, which was very well done. And I thought it was very effective, personally at least. Now, next question. I was wondering, what is your favorite Final Fantasy soundtrack, and what is your favorite song from that soundtrack? I had to think about this one for quite a while, because while FF6 is easily my favorite FF, picking a favorite soundtrack means all of the songs on it. And overall, I think I would actually go with Final Fantasy IV soundtrack as far as my favorite. It has, numbers-wise, percentage-wise, the most truly great, amazing, no really, zero playlist songs on it. And FF6 only has the two. And as far as favorite song from that one, this is going to be a tie. Either the song Within the Giant, which I hate that name, I usually call that song Crystal, which is the song that plays Within the Giant of Babel, or when you're in the furthest end of the lunar subterrane as you're approaching Zemus, or the boss music for the Four Fiends fight, which is to date still one of my favorite boss songs in general, combat songs of all time. Still one of my favorites. The original, by the way, not the DS version. I think the original was superior, personally. Next question. Do you think they will fix Civilization V's horrible online gameplay, as it's quite annoying not being able to finish online games? This question confused me just a little bit, because at first I was like, oh, I know exactly what he's talking about, because there was an issue where the games would drag on and on and on and on, and there would be issues regarding that, and you just wouldn't be able to finish, and because each turn would start taking longer and longer and longer. The reason that's confusing is I've been playing Civ 5 for a while, and in the last few months I haven't had that issue, because I thought they did fix it. So I'm not sure. Maybe it's just me. Maybe something else changed, but I did think they fixed that issue, and I don't really have anything else to add to that, because I play multiplayer Civ 5 relatively frequently. It's a good thing to do while I'm doing paperwork or whatnot. And it's a great game, so hey. Next question. If I want to try and get a question to appear in a Q&A vid, do I need to PM you? This is just me making the absolute point that no, you don't. I am answering your question right now. I'm right here. I do make the effort to read all these and to write all these down and make these gargantuan text files just filled with questions, so I'm not trying to exclude anybody, just in all honesty. Next question. Which ending in Mass Effect Which ending in Mass Effect 3 do you consider the best and worst? This is another one of those weird questions where I wasn't sure what to make of it at first. Maybe the gentleman was joking. Maybe he thought, because as I've said many times, and I know I'm not alone in this perspective, that there are no multiple endings in Mass Effect 3. There's the ending, the stopping, as opposed to the ending, and that's it. And the beams are different, and sometimes people die, and sometimes people don't die, and that's basically the extent of it. So I guess, to be completely honest with you, if I had to pick one of the endings that I would say is the best of Mass Effect 3, it would be the one I have up here that I wrote myself in order to supplant the existing endings because I thought they were insufficient, to put it as kindly as I possibly can. Next question. What do you expect from next-generation systems in general? I'm talking about the PS4, the next box, and personally I don't think we'll see a revolution since we saw with the Xbox 360 and the PS3 because they were actually truly next-gen, but more of an evolution, such as more RAM, CPU thoughts, etc. For such a lengthy question, this is going to sound like a cop-up, but I agree. I sincerely doubt the PS4 or the next box are going to be anything other than slightly upgraded computers, basically. And by computers, I mean not actual PCs like the one I'm on right now. I mean the hardware is going to be improved a little bit, and that's it. And it's probably not going to be that significant. And that's fine. But it's going to take a lot to convince me to buy a next-gen console system at this point. And as usual, it's going to come down to the game library. And so far, that game library consists of 0 games in all such cases, so They have a bit of work ahead of them. Next question. I personally don't like review scores or giving any grade system while discussing a work of art, regardless of medium. And if you have time, yeah, and I read an article that this gentleman wrote, and he would like me to comment on the shady area of reviews where publishers tie developer bonuses to a certain Metacritic score. Now, this is something that I have to be honest with you about because I don't have absolute truth on this. And what I mean by that is all I have is the information that has been reported or printed or whatever, which may or may not actually be the truth. That being said, I do think it is absolute garbage that if it is true, and it is theoretically, and it is most likely true, it is garbage that they do that. It is garbage that your review and how well or poorly you review a game has to do with the money involved and the circumstances. I don't think it should be that way, and that's one of the reasons why I don't like to give a number score on my game reviews, you know. It's one of the reasons I try to review only games that I consider to be good, games that I would recommend, and it's one of the reasons why I basically flat refuse to turn this into something where it's about the money as opposed to about the game, if you follow what I'm saying here. I wouldn't mind being paid to do this, as I've said before. I'm not an idiot. However, I don't want it to be about the money. I would rather do this, have the money to do this, rather than do this for the money, if you follow my saying. And then that's just, I could comment more, but honestly, I don't have much more to add. You basically summarized it really nicely, and some very interesting thoughts there, and it's kind of unfortunate. Next question. Have you ever played the Mechwarrior game series? God, yes. One of my favorite series of all time. And, I keep saying that, and it keeps being true, by the way. I want to stress that. I say that for, like, I don't know, 30 different game series, but it's true for all 30. They're all amazing, and Mechwarrior is no exception to that. And, what is my opinion of them? Well, they're terrible. No, they're awesome. They're great, incredible. I want more. I want more Mechwarrior, and ironically, that leads us into the next question, which is, what do you think of Mechwarrior Online? I don't play Mechwarrior Online, and I'm not going to again. I was incredibly disappointed by it. I did not like what I saw. I did not like what I see. It was not enjoyable at all. I don't know how to explain it in approximate detail. But everything I liked about Mechwarrior, the key ones here being Mechwarrior 3, Mechwarrior 2 Mercenaries, and Mechwarrior 4 Mercenaries, and then Mechwarrior 2. In rough order here. Were all gems, amazing, beautiful games, and Mechwarrior Online was just kind of there. And I really hope they do another, real Mechwarrior game sometime. That would be awesome. Moving on. Do you think the next generation of free-to-play games will bring anything good to gamers? This is something I was discussing with a friend of mine not too long ago, because I tend to have, and I admit this, a bit of a derisive attitude towards free-to-play games. That's because, in my opinion, so many of them are bad, or at the very least, not good. There's no reason for me to consider playing an FTP. Someone was asking me recently, which FTP game do you want to play? Let's go play one together. And I'm like, I could not properly vocalize what I was thinking without sounding horrible, which is, why would I do that? Why would I want to play an FTP game? Why would I want to, or FT2P game, why would I want to pick up a substandard game when I have Guild Wars 2 coming out, already purchased and bought? I have WoW right now, I have Guild Wars 1, I have Lotro. Why would I want to do that? I don't understand. And I had no way of explaining that. And if I didn't want to play any of those, there are several other MMOs out now or out soon that I would be like, yeah, I'll go play that instead. It doesn't make any sense to me. Now, I'm forced to admit that some people have more of a money situation than I do, and Lord knows I'm not well off. But people who are really down in the dirt and who do still have a computer, who still want to play something on it, so that's fine, and I understand that concept. And on top of that, to finally answer your question, yes, I do think there are some free-to-play games that are actually tolerable, enjoyable, and have something to add to the genre as a whole. And so I've got nothing against that as a concept. When I really sit back and think about it, I just have to get past that initial hurdle of... It's the same thing I was talking about in a previous Q&A about how when you open something up to player-generated content, you get a whole lot of stuff, tons of it, and probably about 70% of it is either bad or worse. But this other 30% is either tolerable, good, interesting, wonderful, amazing, excellent, or fantastic. And so I think it's the same kind of situation there. There, in the sea of FTP games that are out there, there's got to be several that are good. and it would take me a while to recommend a few, but you get the idea there. Oh goodness, whoops, wrong window. Next question. Did the utilization of Greek mythology in the God of War series bother you much, especially in 3? The question was being asked because they misuse the mythology extensively. They adapted and changed it a lot. No, that does not bother me, partially because I'm not a huge Greek mythology person, but more importantly because I've always felt that something that uses something like that as a basis should have leeway to change it in order to make sense for their story, if that makes any sense. So while that was clearly based on Greek mythology, you really should think of that as the God of War canon, the God of War mythology, rather than the Greek mythology, because it was designed for God of War, for Kratos, for that game, for that series. It was completely and utterly changed in many, many ways. And so the only thing that stayed was the fact that Zeus was something I can't say on this show. So my point is, it didn't bother me much. I have no problem when they do that and do it well, and that's actually the important part. I think they did a pretty good adaptation. That's the word I've been looking for. A very good adaptation of Greek mythology within the God of War series. I think it worked well for that game. Now, next question. Who is your favorite squad mate in Mass Effect? This is actually a tough one, and I'm actually going to go ahead and cop out and give this as kind of a four-way tie. Rex, Liara, Tully, and Garrus. Sorry, Garrus. I always have trouble saying his name. Garrus. Now, of these, I would probably go ahead and, if I was really, shoved up in a corner with a gun in my head, I'd probably go ahead and default to Garrus and Tully. But that is just by the merest of margins, and because someone had a gun to my head. So, and it's kind of funny, because I was talking about this with a friend of mine a few months ago, before Mass Effect 3 came out, when I was replaying 1 and 2. He was like, so what do you think? And I was like, I really don't like most of the humans in this crew. And I just realized that I'm thinking about this in the wrong direction, because I'm thinking about Mass Effect 1 specifically, not Mass Effect 2 or 3. Let's take another step back here. Step back. Okay. Garrus and Tully are still definitely in the running, without question, without hesitation. For Mass Effect series as a whole, I'm still going to go ahead and put Mordin next there. And Mordin, because Mordin is awesome. And I liked Mordin. He was intelligent, he was wise, he knew how to communicate, which is something I have a great deal of difficulty with. He was able to put into words things that I felt and agreed with. And he was awesome. And, since Rex wasn't into, I suppose we can't add him again. And Liara was there. Well, no, Liara wasn't there, was she? She was there for a bit, for an awesome sequence of awesome, but you know what I mean. I think I'm going to go and narrow it down to these three right here. Tully, Garrus, and Mordin. And I'm not going to pick amongst these three. These three are basically evenly matched as far as I'm concerned. And all for completely different reasons. Because they're all awesome. I guess that's not a different reason, but hey, what do you want from me? Next question. Would you prefer video responses to these long comments? No, I would not. Getting the time to sit down and watch a video and listen to it and then type out everything you're asking would be extra time and effort involved in this that I'm already running out of. So I prefer the comments. Paring these down is not something that takes much time and doesn't bother me that much. I was just commenting on the fact. I was commenting on the comments. Next question. If you could sit down and talk with Casey Hudson and or Mac Walters concerning the Mass Effect 3 debacle with the ending, what would you ask or say to them? Honestly, what I would do is I'd come at them and there would be no anger here. There would be no blame. There would be no rage. It would just be listen. And this would be the trick. I would want them to be honest with me. And so the first half of this discussion would be me trying to assure them, if I have to not talk beyond these walls, I know how to keep a secret. I know how to keep things to myself. I know how to keep my mouth shut. I want to know the truth. I want to know what actually happened, why this actually happened, what actually conspired in order to make this come to pass. Because everything you've been telling everyone else just smacks of lies and marketing. What actually happened? And if either of them then tried to say, well, marketing and lies, then I'd just slug them and then go home. Because I don't feel like being lied to for stupidity when all I want is the truth in the matter. Next question. Do you know what race Yoda is? Did they ever say? Yes, Yoda's race is referred to as Yoda's race. Seriously, go look it up sometime on Wikipedia. It is, in fact, called Yoda's race, but not in canon. That's not the actual term. No, they never say. They never say what race his people are from, and there's been such a small handful of examples from him across history that I suppose they've just decided never to do so. We will never know. It is the Frank Oz race. That's the name of the race. Next question. Do you prefer original Star Trek, Next Generation, or Deep Space Nine? That's a tough one. A very tough one. I don't like... It would be between The Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. I don't like to... As I've said many times before, I don't like to compare two things that are both excellent but for different reasons and in different ways. Like Fallout 3 and New Vegas, just to use the most immediate example that people kept bringing up for a while there when I did my Fallout 3 review. So... I'm going to go ahead and say TNG and DS9. For completely different reasons. They were two very different styles of show. They were both excellent in their own different ways. The only things I could say that were the same that made both awesome were excellent acting, excellent writing, sometimes. Most of the times. Good music, most of the time. Good directing, most of the time. You know. Other than that, the two shows were so different stylistically that I just don't like comparing the two. So, both. Next question. I was wondering what your thoughts are on the Alien and the Predator, the creatures, rather than the films. The Predator has never interested me, believe it or not. The concept of the Predator, which is exactly what it sounds like, is there, and it's an interesting concept. Well, it's not an interesting concept to me. It's just a concept, and it's like, okay, that's great. Not something I've ever gotten into. The whole hunter tribal warrior culture thing has been done a lot, and I personally enjoy it done in other examples. What I will say is I really like the concept of the alien. And Sci-Fi Debris very recently did a review of Alien, the original, which I recommend anybody goes and watch if they're into his stuff at all. And one of the things he mentions is something I've always felt about the aliens, and one of the reasons why I kept watching that series even though it wasn't really my thing, was the aliens themselves were alien. They weren't just extraterrestrial. They weren't just another species. They were what that word really means, which is different fundamentally from what we are. We have no idea what the personality, the drive, the interest, the instinct, the mentality, the culture, or indeed, and this is the crucial part, if any of these things exist at all within these aliens. We know they're intelligent, but we don't know how intelligent, or why, or in what manner. We know we're not sure they're animals, but they might be animals. We have no idea, and it's never really explained or elaborated on in great detail, which is what makes them alien. And one of the reasons I've always liked that as a concept is because it has stayed, to my knowledge, they might have explained it by now, because I haven't watched the series that in recent years, but for a long time it stayed alien. It stayed the alien, the thing that was just completely separate and inhuman. And I liked that. It was an interesting concept. So, next question. If you decided to play evil for once in a video game, no, never, and, for example, killing half the crew at the end of KOTOR 1, do you feel bad for some time, or can't sleep due to guilt, or what? This question kind of smacks of sarcasm, I gotta be honest, but I'm gonna go ahead and give you an honest answer, even though you're probably making fun of me. No, I don't lose sleep over it, that's kind of silly. But let me be completely frank. If I'm dealing with a medium, movie, book, video game, TV show, where I really like it, where it is something I consider to be art, where it's something I really invested myself in, then that means I tend to have an honest to God degree of caring about the characters and the individuals and the setting and all that, right? So yes, I would actually feel guilty going around and slaughtering everyone horribly. In fact, something happened recently, and I don't remember which game, and I don't remember which incident, but it was a moral choice thing, where I was being asked to do something horrible, and at the end of the day I realized, you know what, that's not me, and if nothing else, that's a good enough reason for me, because I couldn't bring myself to do it, and I was just like, no, not happening. And so yeah, if I for whatever reason decided to stop being me and was like, doom, death, and then yeah, I would probably feel guilty about it, and I would probably reload my save game and undo it because I have the power to do that. Next question. Do you feel that BioWare meant well with Mass Effect 3 but were screwed over by EA in some way, such as blah, blah, blah. Now this question is something I've addressed like 5 times, but I'm going to go and give it one more pass just to explain in brief. Yes, I think BioWare was screwed over by EA. That is just my opinion. I don't have a lot of thoughts about what exactly went on. Indeed, like I just mentioned, I would like to know the actual truth of actually what happened. But it is my opinion that it is likely that EA screwed them over either in terms of budget or far more likely in terms of release date. But I do not know for sure, so no idea as far to the reality of the situation. Next question. Do you feel the effort was high for a large part of Mass Effect 3 during the middle stages of the game especially? A lot of people don't realize that games are not made from beginning to end. You start working on a part, and then you start working on another part, and you start working on another part, and once you have like 20 parts, then you start actually working on connecting them as far as coding and levels and design and all that fun stuff. So there's a very definitive feel of the fact that they worked on the Tachanka mission, which I think I'm still saying wrong, and the Rannoch mission and the Citadel mission. All three of those felt pretty well done. Felt like they had a lot of truly epicness and truly awesomeness to it. And the moment as a pure paragon with Morden and Rex and Eve in Tachanka was one of the best moments in like the Mass Effect series, in my opinion, which really says something for a game that overall was so subpar. So yes, I do think there was definitely more noticeable effort, more noticeable drive in the early parts, or I'm sorry, in the middle parts of that game, because the beginning kind of felt, and the ending felt really, but that's just my opinion. Next question. Do you think the trailers and adverts talking about the epic battle to take Earth back shouldn't have been made due to the fact that it's a bold-faced lie? This question was elaborated on significantly, but it was a bold-faced lie. They made a lot of claims in marketing about how your choices would really matter, about how... They made specific comments, which I don't remember right now, but you can look them up somewhere. Probably in the Mass Effect wiki. You know, about how this decision will matter, this decision will matter, this will change things, this will make things really different. And one of the biggest things they kept talking about was because this was the end of a trilogy, they didn't have to worry about the save carrying forward, so they can actually have divergent and branching storylines. And of course, all the ads were about, take back Earth, take back Earth. Just like he mentions. None of this happened. The taking back of Earth, as the question asker posed, was like a couple of fights through some rubble, none of which was particularly interesting or exciting or good, and then a charge towards a beam. And that's basically it. And of course, Marauder shields. Rest in peace, son. So... my point being, yes, I think it was a bald-faced lie, and I really wish people would stop doing that. I really wish marketing departments and sales departments would actually market the game rather than the fictional existence that is not, that they think is, whatever. Bad decision, in my opinion. Moving on. Next question. Do you think the Mass Effect 3 Extended Cut DLC will blow up in their faces even bigger, as it will ultimately fail to satisfy the fanbase? Yes. I'd elaborate, but this is another one of those issues that I've covered a lot. So, yes, I do think that is exactly what's going to happen. Next question. Have you ever played the Prince of Persia series? Yes, I have. I did like the original. I guess I should take that back. I liked the actual original, you know, the real original, way back. I liked the original, which is the one after 3D, whose name I can't even remember. I think it was Sands of Time was the first of the new Prince of Persia series. And then I played, let's see, we had the Twin Princes or whatever it was, and there was a third one, and then there was a reboot one. All of these were good to some extent or another. I still think the Sands of Time one is my personal favorite. As far as which one I think they continued the story on, that's actually difficult, because I'm not sure there's a lot of other places they could go with the existing storyline, which is one of the reasons when they tried to reboot it, I had no real problem with it. As long as they do it well, that's the kicker, making sure that they actually pull it off and do so in a proper manner. Now, this question is quite lengthy, and I mentioned this question earlier. You said that you probably won't get into the Witcher games because of how grim and dark they were, paraphrased. Okay, fair enough, but you also said you liked the Legacy of Kain series quite a bit, which is true. And that seems a bit off. Seriously, Nosgoth is just as dark as the Witcher's world, if not more so the question is, what gives? Do you have some kind of darkometer, and if so, what is it? There's another one of those questions that I feel like was being very derisive or sarcastic or just trying to make fun of me. But again, I'm going to give you a direct and honest answer. As I mentioned before, when talking about Battlestar Galactica, it is very hard to describe exactly what it is that I don't like about things like that. Now in Battlestar Galactica's case, I did have one solid thing I could latch onto, which is the realism factor. But it's difficult to explain why I don't like some settings, why I don't like some games, why I don't like some movies that are clearly pure fantasy. Because I can't say they're realistic because they're not. There's just something about it that bothers me. And ultimately, and I apologize because this isn't going to be an in-depth analysis per se, because I have none. I can't actually put a finger on it and say, this thing right here, this dot. This flash drive is why I don't like those games. This is the problem. No, I can't do that. What it is when I play a game like that, or watch a movie like that, or read a book like that, or watch a show like that, it bothers me. Something about it bothers me. Something about it just makes me feel not cool. And it could be just general disinterest. It could be active disinterest, which is to say, I don't like it and want to get away from it. Actual negative as opposed to neutrality here. But whatever it is, the case is, I look at it and I'm essentially like, well, okay, I know. I will try everything, at least, not everything. Within limits, I will try everything at least. Within limitations, I will try at least almost everything at least once to give it a try, to give it a fair chance. And I will give The Witchers a chance at some point in time, but I have no expectations of really getting into them. I could be completely wrong, and that's why I keep giving things a chance like that, because I never know. It just kind of varies from thing to thing. So, next question. What is your take on Neverwinter Nights 2? Awesome. Awesome, amazing game. I loved it. I loved playing through it. I loved playing through it again. I've actually played through it 3 times. I was wrong the other day. I said I only played it twice. I've played through it twice myself and once with a friend. Amazing game. I think they did a lot of good with it. I think it still needed some serious polishing, especially the multiplayer aspect, but wonderful game, and probably my favorite of the modern D&D PC games. Of course, the old ones, that would be a tie between Baldur's Gate 2 and Planescape Torment, but moving on. Would you be willing to do reviews for Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2? Yeah, I could do that. And I've already added that to the list. So, next question. Let's see here. If Fable 4 was released and radically changed the series, became more of a proper RPG with great story, relevant themes, and characters, would you consider playing it? Yes, and I feel like I keep miscommunicating this, okay? I was trying to discuss this, to explain this ideology here when I was talking about animes in my last question Q&A. I don't dislike something because it's anime. I don't dislike a Fable game because it's a Fable game. I don't like a Final Fantasy game because it's a Final Fantasy game. Statistically speaking, there are series that tend to be more towards my thing that I do enjoy, and statistically speaking, there are series that I do tend to not like. But every single game has to, by itself and on its own merits, justify its existence and be good or bad by itself. So, if you took the worst game series in the universe, I don't know, Custer's Revenge, and made a sequel to that, and it was somehow, I don't even know how to explain it. Let's actually not use that as an example. That's just horrible. Let's use what's a really bad game series that I can say that it won't get me lynched by 10,000 people as they're like, I love that series. You know what? Let's just make up a fictional series just to make this nice and easy. Let's say there's this fictional series called Fables. No, I'm kidding. And it's been going on for like 5 games now, and every one of them has been bad. I tried the first one because I was really excited about it. I kind of tried the second one. I gave the third, fourth, and fifth ones a little bit of a try in the demo, and it was just all, yeah, okay, whatever. I'll say fictional game series 6 comes out, right? And that comes out, and it blows me out of the water. It's an amazing game, fantastic game. Yes, I'll play it. Yes, I'll buy it. Yes, I'll love it. This is one of the reasons I try to give everything a chance, because there are no guarantees of either good or bad gaming based on the name or the time or anything like that. There's statistics, there's probability involved, but that's why you still try, because there's still a chance that it might be good, or indeed a chance that it might be bad. So, to summarize here, yes, of course I'd give Fable 4 a chance. I probably will give Fable 4 a chance, just like I gave Fable 3 a chance, and Fable 2 a chance. It's just so far they haven't really caught me. I wouldn't even call them bad games, they're just RPGs, they're the default, you know what I mean? Next question. Sorry for rambling there a bit, but I really wanted to get that point across. That's important to me. Now, this is a clarification from a question I had in the last Q&A, and he was asking, what is the best race-class combination in World of Warcraft, in my opinion? Now, I'm a bit prejudiced on this one, but because I'm a tank by nature, and in just about any MMO or game that has tanking in it, I tend to play the tank. So I personally lean towards certain combinations, such as Undead Warrior, Blood Elf Paladin, let's see here, Night Elf Druid, female, because I don't like what they did with the male Night Elf models. It doesn't look very uh, aesthetically pleasing, I guess is the way I could put that. It doesn't look very flattering. There we go, that's a good word. And finally, sorry for derailing there, finally, Worgen male blood Death Knights are something I do find a very enjoyable combination. Of all of these, of course, if you haven't caught it, it's the tank classes. I do have my own strange aesthetic choice. This is all aesthetically speaking, though. This is not statistics. If you want statistics, go to Elitist Jerks and look up the forums, because they can tell you which classes are, statistically speaking, best suited for which... which races are best suited for which classes and all that. And I do know all that information. I'm just not going to go into it because it's lengthy and involved, and I haven't been in that particular... I haven't been in that crowd for a while, the hardcore raiding crowd. I stopped doing that back in Wrath. I killed Lich King 25 hard mode, and I was happy with it. And then the guild fell apart on me, and I decided I didn't want to deal with that anymore. So, yeah. Next question here. This is a question on dealing with the Empire, capital T, capital E, that I mentioned in my overarching canon, the Imperial storyline, as I tend to call it. How does the Empire deal with the Warhammer 40k galaxy, because the individual in question has something like that for himself for the last few years? Now, that is actually a very good question. Warhammer 40k, in terms of scale, in terms of what they can do relatively speaking for overall power and technology, is huge. There's a reason that galaxy is considered the example of excess, or rather that setting is. And I'm not saying that is a bad thing. It's kind of their shtick. And let's be honest, orc for life. I can't do the accent, but definitely the orcs. I love the orcs. Anyways, point being, that galaxy is on a permanent quarantine, and in lore, in my own personal way of how this works, that is a galaxy that is so dangerous and so volatile that not only can it not be allowed to interact with the rest of reality, but it cannot be destroyed because the backlash from it would cause so much devastation by itself. And so the entire realm, galaxy, and across all dimensions, this includes the warp, is sealed completely and utterly off in such a manner that it cannot interact with the outside existence. Now, and then it's just kind of left to its own devices. Now, it has been theorized many times by Imperial officials that there might come a time when some good may finally come of that galaxy, when they finally might be able to accomplish something. And I forget which book had this. One of the 40k books had this beautiful, wonderful quote. I wrote it down. I don't have it here, unfortunately, about how, why do we keep fighting? Why do we keep trying? Why do we keep dying? Because there's the chance that the next time around we don't have to. That we could we can actually make a better Imperium. We can make a better galaxy for these people. And for such a horrible and dark and terrible and unpleasant and brutal and dreadful and hopeless and despairing galaxy, there's always that tiny little spark, which is something that I hope will go somewhere someday, either in a game or something, at which point the Empire could finally intervene and help. Next question. Have you ever seen any of the Plinkett reviews? Yes, I have. It's been a while. In fact, actually, give me just a moment just to refresh myself right now. I looked this up earlier when this was first asked. Ah, yes, Red Letter Media is where that's from. That's right. Yes, I have. It's not quite my thing, personally. The only reviewer... this almost sounds hypocritical. The only reviewer I actually really watch is Sci-Fi Debris. So I have watched Plinkett. Don't get me wrong. It's just not something that I enjoy watching on a regular basis. Excuse me. Okay, let's get back to the list of questions here. Where is that list? Okay, here we go. Next question. Did you miss the Mako and the planet exploration from Mass Effect 1 in Mass Effect 2 and 3? To be completely honest, yes, I did. I think that if they tuned the physics engine a bit and made it so that it wasn't ridiculous and impossible and in some cases improbable, this thing, that was simply the product of a relatively poorly designed physics engine for that particular aspect of the game, which could have been fixed. I actually am one of the very few mutant freaks that I know, indeed the only one I know, who enjoyed the Mako exploration in 1. It irritated me because of this, but every time there was a world that was that had craters and smooth rolling hills, I loved it. I loved just roaming around doing a thing because I always loved that feeling of exploration and the fact that there is stuff to explore. There is a point to it. There's stuff that's not on the map, and there's stuff that you can get benefit from in game and otherwise. There's plenty of little lore tidbits. I did enjoy that, and I really wish that they had fixed it rather than ejected it, especially because the scanning minigame irritated me to no end in Mass Effect 2. But anyways, next question here. Have you played Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines? And provided you had, what are your thoughts on it? Specifically story, branching dialogue, etc., etc. I did play it, of course. This was a while ago. This was like in... God, that was before high school, wasn't it? I did enjoy the way that they actually let you branch the storyline significantly, especially for relatively minor dialogue choices, as the commenter mentions here. It really got across what that sort of LARPing should actually involve, what that sort of vampire game should be, where every decision you make, even and indeed the way you say things, actually has an impact on things, rather than simply, would you like to go to the burning town, or would you like to go to the road? When a choice, I'm not necessarily saying anything against choices like that, because for coding reasons that it's much easier to do that, and that's why most games do that. But when you are talking to a guy and you have a choice of saying, yeah, it's all right, or yeah, I kind of liked it, the difference in tone between those two things make being the choice I liked, and I like that the general concept, and I think they pulled it off well, and it'd be awesome if games would do a little more of that. Next question: what kind of music do you listen to? This actually amused me, because as I mentioned in my previous Q&A, Heatman stage of Mega Man 2 was the very first song I ever enjoyed listening to, that I just sat and listened to music to listen to music. I listen to video game music. I have a very, very large archive. In fact, while I'm talking here. And that is basically 99.5% of all the music I have, period. I have a very small selection of individual songs that I do like, but I do stress the individual songs. I don't like artists, I don't like bands. Some of that is actually from movies, soundtracks like that kind of thing, like the Pirates of the Caribbean, or Jurassic Park, things like that, and the Star Treks, of course, because, Jerry Goldsmith and John Williams are both awesome. But 99.5% of what I listen to is video game music. Now, I'm actually really picky. This is probably going to sound like a small archive, but I have 9,847 songs that are video game songs out of... I don't have a quick means to determine how many songs I have in general. But all of that is stuff I've collected over the years, and it's it's kind of a pain, actually, because I don't know if you know how hard it is to find soundtracks for games, especially back in the day before that was popular in any way, shape, or form, and the internet as a whole hadn't really blossomed back then, So my form of listening to video game music was I had a micro recorder, and I'd hold it up to the TV, and I'd hold record, and I wish I was kidding. But yes, I am a geek. Thank you for asking. The things we do for the music we love. Now, what do you think of... do you watch Friends, the show? No. I don't watch TV in general. I mean, I do, but I'm pretty picky about the shows I watch. And I did watch Friends a couple times, and I didn't like it at all. I was just using that as an example when I mentioned it previously, so I apologize for that. Next question. Do you put the Kingdom Hearts series in the art category? As an aggregate, yes. The Kingdom Hearts games have their flaws, they always have, but each successive game has been shaving away those flaws inch by inch, so that each successive game, this is my opinion of course, each successive game has been getting better and better about it. And Birth by Sleep is probably one of my favorite examples of a Kingdom Hearts game that actually I don't have a complaint about off the top of my head. I'd have to really think about that one. But all the other ones I have, well, okay, I can complain about this section, or I can complain about this section because it was just... it didn't fit or whatever. But as an aggregate, looking at the series as a whole, yes, the Kingdom Hearts series I do think belongs in the art category. It is a brilliant, complicated, in-depth, tragic storyline, which really engenders me to the characters, and I really enjoy the way it's been going, and I'm really looking forward to Kingdom Hearts 3D in 5 weeks now, I guess. Order the Kingdom Hearts games from best to worst. This is very highly subjective and relative, and I haven't actually finished Recoded yet because I haven't had time. So let's leave Recoded off the list. That's just not a part of this. I'm not going to give a judgment on it. I would say my favorite is probably Birth by Sleep, followed by Kingdom Hearts 2, followed by Kingdom Hearts 358, followed by Kingdom Hearts 1, and then followed by Kingdom Hearts Recom. Recom is a game whose game system is the Final Fantasy Tactics problem. The game system bothered the heck out of me, and it was a grind and it was a pain, and I hated going through it. However, the storyline was amazing. The voice acting was actually good. You know, it was really a shock going from Kingdom Hearts 1 straight to Recom, because Recom was recorded after 2 in real life terms. And you could tell the voice actors and the writers had gotten their stuff together a lot more, because the dialogue and the writing and the voice acting all just suddenly leapt up in quality. And it was amazing. I loved it. Incredible game, story. Just really wish the gameplay was a little more tolerable. Speaking of art category, is Mass Effect 1 in your art category? That is a tough one. And overall, I'm going to go ahead and say no. But not for the reason that I can't go back and re-enjoy it, you know, which is what most games fall out of the art category for. Mass Effect 1. How do I even put this? Mass Effect 1 deserves all kinds of kudos and props and rewards and recognition, and is in the category right below art. But one thing Mass Effect 1 never actually did for me was it never made me feel. As weird as that's going to sound, I really liked the characters, I really liked the writing, I really liked the setting, I really liked the gameplay, I really liked the story, I really liked every facet of the game, but it never had moments, and it never made me actually feel. And that is one of the requirements for me personally for a game to be art. Mass Effect 2 had moments. Mass Effect 2 had scenes that made me feel, and the entire culmination of Mass Effect 2, the suicide mission itself, is one long exploration of that fact. And so, while Mass Effect 1 is an absolutely amazing game, it falls out of the art category for that one almost insignificant flaw, that it never actually made me feel. But I want to stress for just a moment that is absolutely nothing against the game whatsoever. It's just a hair's thread there. This isn't even a technically. It's just and the reason I say this isn't a technically is because my gut reaction was no, and then I had to sit back and be like, okay, let's explain why. Why is my instinct to say no? I need to have a logic reason behind this, if that makes any sense. But anyways, so next question. Where are we? Shoot. 47. Okay. Next question. The Overlord games. Do you think they are evil, as in actually evil, or just kind of light and silly? Oh, they're definitely light and silly. What you're doing in the Overlord games is so far away from evil, it's not even funny. There's a type of that. It's parodical evil, or parody, if you prefer. Evil, where you're not actually evil. You're not actually trying to do evil or dastardliness or whatever. You're just... It's all in good fun, if that makes any sense at all. And Overlord games exemplify that in a really good way, in a way that several games have done so. And yes, by the way, I have played the Overlord games, and I do enjoy them, and I hope they make another one sometime that's awesome, and then we can enjoy it, and it'll be awesome. Oh, goodness. Next question. What do you think of the recent trend of most, if not all, big and mid-sized budget movies to be sequels, prequels, reboots, or based on something, instead of being more original? I think it's an inevitable. I think there's nothing necessarily wrong with it because, again, the quality must be taken into account on an individual level. However, it would be nice to see them do movies that are that are original, that are original ideas. That being said, I'm not one of those people that demands everything be original. In fact, I've actually been very angry lately and been kind of ranting at several of my friends at how much I would love Warcraft 1 to be remade with the StarCraft 2 engine. Or StarCraft to be remade with the StarCraft 2 engine. Or Diablo 1 and 2 to be remade with the Diablo 3 engine. I would buy that, especially if it was done properly. A proper remake of a good game, and just like a proper remake movie of a good movie, is a good thing, in my opinion. But it would be nice to see a little bit more originality, because people are getting a little bit silly about it. Battlefield, the movie? Really? I don't even know what to say to that. So, next question. Who are your favorite Star Trek captains in order? And the gentleman listed his own order. This is also a tough one because the styles and it's so difficult. It's kind of funny because the bottom two are very easy to pick out. That would be Archer at the bottom and Janeway just barely above him. As far as my top three, I would probably go ahead and pick Picard as my top, and then Kirk and Sisko are effectively tied for second. And when I say Kirk, I basically mean the movies Kirk, most exemplified by Star Trek II and Star Trek VI, in case you're wondering. Kirk back in the original series had a different flair to him, and except for a few episodes, wasn't really Kirk, if you know what I mean. It wasn't until Star Trek II that we saw Kirk for the first time, and he was really Kirk again in Star Trek VI. By that, and because of that, I think I'm going to go ahead and give the point to Sisko, because we saw a lot of Sisko, and Sisko was Sisko for quite a while, and was a very different type of captain, which I liked and I enjoyed, and I did like seeing a take on the Star Trek captain that was, like that. Let's see here. If BioWare or Obsidian were to make a sequel trilogy to the KOTOR series called Knights of the New Republic, what era would you like it to be set in? And he gives me a list. The New Republic era, the New Jedi Order era, or the Legacy era. And during what existing conflict, if any, would you have the story take place? That's a tough one. I don't like upsetting standing canon much, and so this would have to be something that fits in to the existing canon for those areas, which is very well fleshed out, especially the 20-year post area there. So I would probably go ahead and let me think about that for just a minute. See, my personal thoughts is I would think what he mentions as the New Jedi Order era, which I could be misunderstanding when that is exactly, but that would be after Luke establishes the new academy on Yavin, and basically up until the Yuzun Vong War. That period of time would be the period of time I would pick, and as far as existing conflicts in that, there are several really big ones during that period of time, but of those, the ones I would like to see most, that's actually a tough one. I'm going to have to think about that for just a moment. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I would use any of those conflicts, because my three favorite only one of my three favorite conflicts exists during that period. I think I would go ahead and use the third one, which does exist right at the end. That's the Hand of Thrawn duology, which is not a conflict as in a war or specific fight, so much as it is the galaxy coming apart at the seams due to the machinations of the individuals involved, which would make excellent fodder for the third game, where you are running around as a Jedi trying desperately to keep the galaxy in working order and helping put out the brush fires. And I think that'd be awesome. So, next question. God, we're getting up there. I'm going to have to cut this off pretty soon and split it up. Next question. Are you aware of the Open Morrowind project, and does it excite you? Yes, I am. Yes, it does. I really am hopeful for more from that. I've been leaving it aside because, to my knowledge, they're still not done. I actually went and looked when this person asked this question and see if there was any real new news, and there was a few bits. But I'm still putting it to the side. I'm still letting it wait until it's at a more done time, because I would like to go back to Morrowind, and I would love to go back to a properly remade Morrowind, basically. Morrowind with the Skyrim engine, as the phrase would be, and that'd be awesome. So I'm really hopeful for that. Now I'm going to go ahead and cut this off and start my next thing as this uploads.